Welcome back. Today we are talking with Regina Phelps about polycrisis and a lot of other risks from the, what was it? I forgot
The
the name of
World
the report.
Economic Forum Global Risk Report.
That's right. I want a nice
It's a
quick,
lot of words. It's a
yeah, I
lot of
want a
words.
nice quick, I was going to say risk report, but
Yeah, it's
I know it's
long.
more than that. So lots of good information there in the first one and a humbling information in the first segment, I have to say. And wish I could say it gets better.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, some days where you can tell jokes for an hour and that will be it, right?
Yeah. One day, one day.
Yeah. So what I want to do is I wanted to peel a little bit into their report. Again, I'm really encouraging all of you to download this because it's such an important document. But what they do as part of this is they give you kind of several dashboards to look at. And these are really helpful, again, if you're trying to wrap your brain around these crises. And the first one they give is one's called the current risk landscape, which is kind of the dashboard about where they see things right now. And remember, we're talking about now in January of 2024. And so these are the top 5 issues. And again, if you look at the area of the slide, if you're watching this on YouTube, but if you're actually listening to it, there again they go back and color code these in the 5 areas that the report always covers: economic, environmental, geopolitical, societal, and technology. And the number one winner of the current landscape threats were extreme weather. And certainly you saw a lot of that around the world with floods and typhoons and hurricanes and avalanches and all kinds of things really having a significant issue driven primarily by climate change. Now, we in the United States, well, I've been really hammered by that. You as well. I mean, if you want to put wildfires under extreme weather, you guys in Canada, huge wildfires. We had quite a few this year as well, but also issues of drought, contrasted by flooding, etc. So extreme weather is a big issue, and that took 60%, 66% of the respondents felt that extreme weather in the current moment was the most significant issue. The second thing I thought was really interesting, and it was all about misinformation and really more importantly, disinformation generated by AI, looking at the aspect primarily of deep fakes and well-crafted emails. And we were talking about that earlier, how you can already see AI is really improving spam to make you more comfortable on clicking where probably you shouldn't, because they're getting better at creating those more reasonable, reliable, and looks like your friend or your business sending you an email.
Yeah, the grammar and the spelling mistakes are all gone.
Right, right.
And it reads better. And the only way you're going to catch it is you're going to have to know some other things like looking at the URL,
Right, exactly right.
and where it's coming from.
Right.
While the email itself or may just read perfectly, but
Right.
still, you got to be careful.
Absolutely. I mean, no clicking
Yeah.
until you're absolutely positively sure. I will call friends and say, "Did you send me an email? It looked like it was from you, but I wasn't sure, and I don't click on anything."
I've done that. I even did it with my bank once. I
Yeah.
wasn't quite sure. I went, and is this real? And my financial advisor said, yes, yeah, it's real. I went, okay. You might want to pass this up to your
Yeah, you might want to
people that
improve
do
it,
this,
right?
that it's looking a little off.
It's good feedback. Good feedback. So number 2, all about AI, and really, I want to say really about disinformation. And of course, we certainly saw that we've been seeing that growing in elections over the last 4 or 5 years, really 6 years. Certainly in the United States, a big push with Russia with the 2016 election. And I can't only imagine what 2024 is going to be in the United States with misinformation, disinformation. The third one on my list, in some ways, I feel like in the United States that this could be number 1, and that is societal or political polarization, where you have nations and peoples that are divided by either societal characteristics and or issues, and certainly politics. And I think that's heavily fueled by the fact that we all now have the opportunity to kind of drill into our own personal echo chambers, where you find the news that you like, that either appeals to you or follows your particular politics that you enjoy, And you can just drill a big hole into that. And next thing you know, you never really hear or see anything else. And you never see the other side. And so people are very selective about what they listen to and respond to. And that, I think, encourages even more polarization, because we are so much in the lane that we like, and we don't really hear anybody else talking. And that's a huge problem. Is that the same in Canada? It's really bad here in the US.
It's getting there, yes, because we may have an election later this year, even though it's supposed to be next year. We have a minority government, so it could be this year.
Right.
And because we're so influenced by what happens in the US,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, that that disinformation and that political, well, everything becoming political, put it that
Yep.
way. It doesn't matter what it is,
Yep.
it's becoming political. So it's finding its way up here. And you are seeing it in headlines. I saw a headline the other day that said Prime Minister Trudeau XYZ, which was all positive. The same headline with a different paper was ABC, completely negative, but the story was all about the same thing. So it's like, okay, this is
That's
crazy.
interesting, right? So if you were
Yeah.
a headline reader only, and you wanted to think negatively about Trudeau, you could read that headline and it would reinforce your belief, even though
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
article was the same.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
crazy.
it is crazy. The fourth one is the cost of living crisis. Now, even though here in the United States, and I believe in Canada, the inflation numbers have gone down, it's still, and the stock markets in the United States have gone up, and generally speaking, economically, the data is that we're doing better. However, when people go to the grocery store, the costs of buying things have not dropped back to their pre-pandemic levels. So people are still feeling really pinched, even though technically, economically, the country, like United States, I believe Canada as well, is actually doing pretty well. There are still some countries that are having still severe inflation, like Argentina at 150%. But
Mm,
for the most part, most developed, quote, developed nations uh, are having a better time of that, but still prices have not gone back to what we remember you paid for a loaf of bread in 2020, the beginning. And I think that really is upsetting to a lot of people, of course.
yeah.
And right. And
I
then
know
last one. Yeah, I'm sorry,
people,
go
I
ahead.
know some people have become much better cooks because they're now
Right.
buying bulk things and making their own bread and doing some of their own, cooking like that along those lines, baking and things like that.
Which actually, in some ways, might be better for them, right? Than buying something that's, because gosh knows what's in anything that you buy anymore, right?
True.
That's pre-made. So you could argue that it might be better that you're doing that, but
Yeah.
it never makes you feel good when you spend more for something. And I think the thing about groceries is you buy them every week, or you buy them a couple times a week. It's not like a big expense where you only do it once a year, or maybe you go out to dinner a couple times a month. But when you go every, like 2 or 3 days a week, or once a week at least, you notice it every single week. And so it's in your face in a very different way than
Yeah.
those other expenses. The last one is cyber attacks. And that's another thing I thought was kind of surprising, which really speaks to the issues that are really above it. But cyber attacks, which I've talked about many times, are a huge, huge issue. And they're only becoming more sophisticated. Employees are still clicking on those things that they shouldn't be clicking on. The people that are actually sending malware out and are actually engaging in these illicit activities are often both illicit gangs, nefarious criminals, but also nation states. And many of them are buying off the shelf ransomware, off the shelf malware. And you don't even have to be good at it, because you can buy it on the dark web, and there is a software as a service module you can buy, and they have a help desk and they can help you deploy it. So you don't even have to be good at this anymore. So increasingly, it's a huge issue for many of my clients, and that's not going to go away. And with AI, they can just create more malware at a faster rate. And so we're going to be stuck with that for a long time. So I'm surprised. I guess not everything could be number one, but to me, I'm surprised cyber attacks aren't closer to one out of the current risk landscape and the views of the recipients. So here's sort of a look at these things when you look at them in the ranking in a short and long term. And this is where they kind of begin to pull things apart. And I just want to start at the 10-year one, because you can see green is the color of the environmental issues. And as you can see, the forecast for 10 years from now, If you look at this, that you'll see that literally 5 of the things are all about environmental issues. Extreme weather, climatic changes, biodiversity loss, natural resource shortages, and pollution. Those are the 5 things out of the 10 that are listed that are all environmental. And then there, of course, is the misinformation, disinformation, and cybersecurity. And then they also talk about involuntary migration. And then they also talk about societal polarization, but it's lower. If you look at 2 years, instead of 2 years, I wanted to contrast it because it's really quite different when they look at what's 10 years from now versus now. The number one risk overall, when they put them all into a hopper and rank them in order, is misinformation and disinformation, followed by climatic weather issues, followed by societal polarization. Then cybersecurity, armed conflict, interstate armed conflict. So again, both people actually committing robberies, moving illicit goods, a variety of things like that, which I think is very interesting and really speaks to the times, I think. Lack of economic opportunity, which causes migration, inflation, involuntary migration, economic downturns, and pollution. To me, I think this is a very interesting look because it's quite different. It's really different. 10 years out, over half of it is all about the environment and about the climatic issues. Right now, it's more what's happening societally in many ways. Thoughts on that?
I think some of the reason why there's a big difference is what's happening right now is influencing the the two-year outlook, the potential war, well, not potential wars, the wars with the potential for other wars occurring. And we are experiencing El Nino right now. So we're having
severe weather,
weather at times, no snow at Christmas and New Year's, even up here in Canada, which was really odd.
Pretty amazing.
At least my area anyway. And that's a first. And I think that is what is on people's mind, what's here and now.
Yep.
But knowing that that has a longer term impact then influences what their responses were for 10 years down the road.
Of course.
So, and the elections are going on and all the different things that are being said through the media and what's playing out in courtrooms and in the media and what's being said about people and different kinds of people. I think that's why there's a lot more societal and geopolitical responses. And then because you don't know where that's going to lead, you do know people do know that climate change is a lot longer thing to address and fix.
And a long time issue to fix too. It's not like you can fix it quickly, right?
Yeah, so I think that's why there's a big difference in responses between the 2-year versus the 10-year outlook.
Totally agree. Yeah, I find it fascinating. And then I just want to talk about a couple more. My goal is that we could finish this particular section, and then we'll talk about the voting issue at the end. So this particular chart really shows how so many of these risks are actually interconnected. So how for example, if you look at societal polarization, how it begins to really push into things like lack of economic opportunity, things like unemployment, also issues about involuntary migration. There are a lot of different things that begin to sort of touch each other. And then under the blue bubble, which is the economic, how you can have this issues related to, kind of the burst of the economic bubble, how the connection to inflation, an increasing debt ratio in a bunch of countries, like China in particular, which is kind of unnerving for a lot of economists when they look at what's going to happen in the future with their really burgeoning debt. And how that connects to things like building infrastructure. And so all of these things begin to sort of plot out for you how this polycrisis all begins to connect to each other as we look at the 5 things that they look at. So this is one that really takes a bit of time to study. So I would encourage folks, that, especially on YouTube, to really stop and begin to sort of see all of these different connection points so that you can actually begin to peel it back, and you'll begin to see how it's not one thing. Hardly anything stands alone anymore. Everything is going to be rubbing up in some way against something else. And that puts us kind of in the middle in the kind of work that we do. And this particular slide actually is not from a global risk report, but it's actually, I don't know, do you ever get the visualcapitalist.com? Do you ever look at their website?
Never looked at it, no.
It's really good. I would encourage you and your listeners to go. What they do is they pick, I don't know, 3 or 4 topics every week, actually, and they'll kind of dig into them and make great visuals. So you take a complex problem and they kind of boil the ocean for you, and then they put it into some visuals that make it much more easy to both understand and also to utilize as a tool. And so this is the boiled version of the global risk report. And what you'll see is it does have the listing at the very top, starting with extreme weather. It tells you what category it falls into, and then it shows the overall cascading percentages dropping from high to low. So this, for example, if you were trying to share this with an executive who is not going to really dig into all of this stuff like you and I might, it gives them the opportunity to kind of see that quick snapshot of how the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report looks at risk for 2024. So I find this one to be actually pretty helpful.
I think on that note, we'll take a break before we start something, the next topic. We are talking with Regina Phelps today about polycrisis, and we are also talking about the findings from the 2024 World Economic Forum Risk Report. There, got it out.
Good job.
And we will be right back. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.